Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You can find all our episodes on cryptopodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I have 4 other podcasts: the Awakening Podcast, Learn Polish Podcast, the Speaking, and the Meditation, as well as being a podcasting coach. And you can find them all on link.bio/podcaster or roycollin.com. Today, my guest in Nashville, Tennessee, please welcome Joe Rotella.
Yep, you did good.
Excellent. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Roy, for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So you might just let the listeners know. Who's Joe?
Sure. So I started off in graphic design. I played music my whole life or a lot of my life, and slowly started to move into audio production, audio recording and stuff. With a graphic design background, it turned into like multimedia, some video editing. And then as audio became more of my thing, slowly moved into podcasting and grew with this whole podcasting thing. That's this revolution of podcasting with how people now start to get their information. So I started off with just doing basic music recording stuff. And then for like the last 10 years, just been slowly migrating into that podcast realm of stuff. And then now it's predominantly been audio editing, audio production for podcast stuff. I work freelance with a couple different people. They got specialty tasks like that for multimedia stuff. They send it my way. And then during that course, it was probably about 2016, 2017. I was going through some hard times in my life. I was going through divorce and stuff, and slowly got into crypto. By just kind of looking up, seeing what was going on with it, and decided to purchase some Bitcoin when it was at like $900. And so it wasn't a lot. It wasn't, because it was like one of those things where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. So purchased a little bit of it, kind of sat with it for a year. And then as there was a year went by, I met one of my best friends now who he's an Air Force intelligence officer out here in the United States, and he was into crypto. And so randomly met him on this website where you kind of meet up with each other, with people. It's called meetup.com. And so we met up and we just randomly started talking about it. And all of a sudden we're like, wait, you have crypto? You have crypto? So we started to really dive into it together in about 2017, 2018. And from there, it was just like, oh, I see the bigger picture of this thing. Like, this is a way bigger picture than people are understanding right now. And then having all my background in audio production, stuff like that, realized that, especially in America, like, there's not a lot of people that are like really understanding it yet. And I love to, I'm not really necessarily about always making money for me. It's more like, how can I help? How can I educate people with stuff I know and make it simplified? Because I'm not going to lie, like, I'm not the smartest person in the room. But how can I take what I know about crypto and interpret it for other people and send it out and spread it out to the masses as simplified as possible? And podcasting was one of those outlets where it was like, I can use the information I know and send it out. And that's the easiest way to do it, which has led us to the led me to the Crypto 101 podcast, which is predominantly just educational based as much as I can be, leaving my opinions out of it, but more or less giving people a foundation of what is this bigger picture that we need to understand, because crypto is here to stay, whether any of us like it or not. But what's the bigger picture of it all? So anyway, I hope that sums it up.
Oh, bro, no, excellent. And just on the podcast, because I've listened to a few episodes, and it's because like obviously I'm interviewing people, but you're doing a solo cast as such, and you're talking. How do you find that? Because I remember, because I've got 5 podcasts, as you know, and I just found it strange doing the solo cast. How is it for you? Do you actually have it prepared down, or are you just speaking from the heart on the topic that you're going for?
No, that's a great question. No, if I went from like just straight from my head, oh, it would be bad. It would be terrible, because I'm a random, like I'll like I'm doing right now, just randomly saying stuff. No, and honestly, like I'm about 20. I just released my 23rd episode yesterday, and I've been hit up tons of times for interviews, And it's not that I don't want to interview people, it's that my podcast isn't really about selling stuff necessarily. It's more about presenting information and helping people understand where it's coming from. And a lot of people that hit me up, they're great people, but like they want to try to sell something. And it's like, so I'm trying to slowly migrate, like having people like you on who have an understanding of it and trying to show people the bigger picture of it and where they started from and where they think it's going. I think that's more helpful to people so that it gives them a better critical thinking thought process on the whole thing. So I try to do it. I do solo just by writing it. I like type it out before I ever say anything, reread it a bunch of times to make sure that it actually makes sense. Make sure that I'm fact checking a lot of stuff because like we all know, like there's a lot of information, especially with crypto, that changes daily. So it's not, I don't find it hard doing the solo. It's more or less just not boring people with solo podcasting. So that's why my episodes are really short, from like 8 to 12 minutes long, because most people's attention spans are really short.
They're after switching off now already because we're after passing that
yes, exactly.
that 8 minute. No, but I like that actually as well, because I think, you know, it's different obviously the conversation, and we're discussing something in specific, but like just to learn something information, because you're not rattling off 50 things, you know, you're giving each one as a certain topic. And I want to cover a few of them because I just like the way that you explained it. And like my reasoning behind doing the crypto podcast is I've got the Awakening, which is exposing fraud and corruption. And I just saw in this industry with the rug pulls and there are so many people out there that are ripping people off, which isn't doing us a favor in this technology, because somebody gets burnt in something, they never want to touch it again. And I just thought by, you know, sharing information, and I do the same, like I have on the form that people fill in, it's like, this isn't a pitch fest. Like, you know, I have no problem. You know, people like, you know, that you have a service and that's grand. But like, I didn't want the case that somebody's coming in and they're launching a new coin and they go, oh yeah, let's go on to him and start doing it, you know. And like my first video has actually mentioned that even if I have somebody on the show and they're actually talking, you still do your own due diligence. And I know that I know you say I don't do that, but I know you actually give a disclaimer at the start of your podcast. And yeah, I understand that as well. Like you're kind of saying even the information that you use, and I mean you mentioned that you're fact checking it, but you're just ring fencing it as well, because unfortunately we're living in a world that everybody wants to sue you. Like
yes, very much so. And it's crazy because people and everything's out there permanently now too, so that's a whole nother aspect of it. So it's a scary
I didn't realize, because it was something I saw not so long ago where you can do backtracker or something. I was able to check a business that I had over, I don't know, 12 years ago or something like that. And I was looking at the website, and because I used to do a load of property, and I was able to see everything. And I was like, whoa, you know, and my newsletter and the whole lot was like,
yeah,
I didn't realize that. And it's like, it's good in a way, but it's also scary because, yeah, you know, people make mistakes in life, and it's like it comes back to bite them. And people, like, I think that's why sometimes when people do something like some of the evil boys doing some bad things, it can be good for us as well, because people are able to actually grab it and, you know, they can share what was actually done, you know, and post it.
Yes, exactly.
So I know you talk about Web 3.0. So you might, because I know you actually done a show on that, and you're talking about kind of, you know, the development from one upwards. You might just talk a bit on that just to let people know about it.
Yeah, sure. So the last podcast I just did was on Web3. And basically we had Web 1, which was like static web pages, hyperlinks, like the first of internet, like dial up. And then we moved to Web 2.0, which was more like our Facebook, Amazon, eBay, you know, the social medias, the e-commerce based, more user interface and big data collection. That was that's Web 2.0, what we're pretty much in right now. And then Web 3 is, which it's, I want to say it like, it hasn't really been determined yet because it's still evolving, but it's going to be heavily based probably in blockchain, which is like crypto heavy, you know, is predominantly relied on. And we're talking like the integration of AI meeting, you know, there was a really good tweet. I forgot his name now that did it. I said it in the podcast episode, but it was basically Web 1 was read only. Web 2 was read and write only. Web3 is going to be read, write, and own only, where you're going to own your data back again. And that's where predominantly it sounds like a lot of people are pushing, because a lot of people are tired of the big data collection of their information. That's the beauty of blockchain. You know, that's the beauty. I've always said, like, people always think that I drink Kool-Aid with cryptocurrency. It's like, I'm not for nor against crypto. It's more or less that, like, there's a bigger picture here, and blockchain is the underlying technology that can be completely amazing if we allow it to be, and great use cases for it. There's a couple, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but there's
what's all about, yeah.
With blockchain, the use cases, as a musician and an artist, there's a lot of people that are against NFTs. I understand why. The whole image side of things, it's stupid. But if you take a step back, this is where, like, my podcast, I want to try to teach critical thinking to people, where it's like, okay, it's okay to be critical of the image side. Ticketmaster. I don't know how it is where, like in Poland, but
yes, Ticketmaster is there as well. Yeah.
It's predominant, and it's annoying. Their ticketing fees are outrageous. It's all of it. It's too expensive. Blockchain could potentially eliminate the middleman fees of that, on top of smart contracts, which would directly pay artists, which would directly pay. You're cutting out a whole section, which would not only drop costs, but also give more money to artists and the people that are actually contributing to the entertainment side of things.
And stop the scammers as well, because the ticket sales, I mean, it is a horrible thing. Imagine traveling to get a ticket and you queue up and you have to pay in the money. Yeah, it stops that. I think that's brilliant. When I heard that, it was like, that is fantastic.
That's exactly it. And so, like, get.protocol is, or getprotocol.io is actually doing, and I don't work with them or anything. The only reason I bring them up is it's an example of a use case, like ticketing system for artists and bands and musicians and venues. They are doing that. They're starting to evolve, and especially it's happening in Europe, where they're creating this alternate ticketing system that puts more money into artists. So the only reason I go off on that tangent is because blockchain allows that to happen. That's a blockchain use case in NFT world, where people are actually getting a digital file on the blockchain, like you said, that prevents fraud. It gives them actually what they're doing. And again, trying to get the majority of the population on top of this is very difficult. But as people spread the awareness of it, it's like, guys, this is really good technology that could potentially be awesome. Not saying it's not a utopia, but it's getting to a better point of where user data is not shared with everybody. You know, you're saving money. It's middleman being eliminated from all the junk that we get tired of, all that stuff. So Web3 allows all that integration to come into play if it's done somewhat correctly, which, again, that falls on a lot of big names to want to do stuff like that, where I don't see Google wanting to give up collecting data, or Facebook. It seems like that's what drives them. That's just my opinion. But anyway, that's kind of the evolution of Web 3.0, though, is basically you will own your data. And as somebody who, and again, I try really hard to keep my opinion out of all this stuff, but, like, why wouldn't I want to be accountable for my own data? Like, why would I not want to own my own? And that's where cryptocurrency comes in. You are your bank. You own your coins, your tokens. And it's teaching people that, to be accountable, to be like, you should want that. You should want to know what these tokens do. Why are you investing in a Shiba coin if there's no good use case to it? So it's trying to teach people that, like, you have the power to do this. You have the power to understand it. Here you go. You know, so that's kind of where Web 3.0 for me is driving, which, again, this could take a decade or two to get to, but it's cool that we're seeing this, and we are in the front lines of it right now. And I think that's important. So anyway, I didn't mean to ramble on that one.
It's fine. No, it's excellent. And like regarding your data, I mean, like with any of my websites, I don't use the cookies or anything because I kind of say, hey, practice what you preach. If you're against this, don't have this. So I make sure any of my businesses, I do not have cookies. And I hate, like, you go in, a lot of the time it's like reject them. And sometimes you've no choice. It just closes. And I done a search. There was some video or something I've seen telling you how to check what Google had on you. And it was frightening. Like they know so much. You can turn it off. But I mean, it's even now the phone next to us is recording. It's like, do we agree to that? Of course not. Do we have a choice? No. And like regarding the NFTs, I mean, I'm actually working now. I've got a team doing like digital art. And I love that because I saw that it was based on a guest. I saw a guest coming on explaining, and I just got it. I went, this is beautiful, because even with normal art, there's so much copies. I mean, there's people even in museums, they think they're original. This way, we create something beautiful. We're going adding music to it, and you buy it. And whether you sell one of 200 or a one of one, you're getting something unique. And the beauty is with art, some people like something all their life. Others, they like to change things around in 3 months. And the beauty is you can change it around, and you can even sell the one that you had. And what I like as well, actually it's something to discuss, is I see like OpenSea is the main one for that, and you can build in a commission. So I think 10% is a fair enough. I know you can modify, but what I've read is that when you take it off that platform, so if somebody actually takes it off and sells it on to another, then the royalties don't work. That's a bit kind of concerning, because if you agree on a contract and you're kind of looking after the artist as well as the team that have put it together, do you think that's something that can be resolved, or have you any ideas on what's going on there?
That's a great question. And that's where, because it's funny, a lot of people bring that stuff up. They're like, how like, when it comes to the smart contract stuff, and I know somewhat about smart contracts because a lot of like real estate is starting to go into that realm, and some of the, even the music industry is starting to use smart contracts with selling stuff. That's a good question. I'm not completely sure how that would be eliminated, just because either way, it's on a blockchain. So you're still seeing what the actual, with the data of it itself, it's not, it's showing that there's a timestamp for that specific exchange or whatever. I don't know how you would prevent necessarily to do that, but like you bringing up the NFTs too, with the whole like art side of things, just in music alone, as somebody who tries to sell his music and stuff, like, you're talking eliminating Napster with NFTs, because those are timestamped and unique. And that's another thing. Like, I have a lot of musician friends who are like, NFTs are stupid. And I'm sitting here like, you're missing the bigger picture. Like, you can take your songs now, post them to a Spotify type platform, and people purchase them, but they can't copy them or duplicate them. And they have a unique encrypted that can't be exchanged unless they decide to sell it through the blockchain again. And I don't think they understand that. Like, that's a good thing.
And good luck with getting paid from Spotify,
Yes, like, at least you're working out the agreement of the smart contract of what you can actually be paid. You know what I mean? Snoop Dogg is kind of doing something with that too, where he's building a platform based on that. And again, I'm not trying to go off on tangents, but it's trying to give people a better understanding of, it's not a utopia, but it is really good stuff that could potentially be game changers in a good way for everybody involved, and so I don't know, but to answer your question, I'm not quite sure how they would eliminate somebody pulling it off of that, except requiring it to be on that blockchain specifically. I don't know though. I know blockchain, but I don't know the ins and outs as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's so advanced that it's crazy how it all works.
But it's beautiful, especially with like the NFTs. And like I see, because you mentioned Snoop Dogg, because I saw that somebody had created something with him, an NFT, but it wasn't done by him. So like, we have to kind of look down the copyright rule as well now, like, because he hasn't said anything about it. But in reality, it's getting his value because of who he is. And I know that with t-shirts and everything over the years, there's been something similar. Like, I don't know, has Trump got anything to do with the ones that were sold, right? I don't know. Did they have one of 10,000 or one of 1,000? They're basically just I don't know. Did you see that? The graphic they're like Beavis and Butthead kind of, it's really poor. And it's like changing the hat. He's got a patch on. This like, and they're selling for 2,750 or the lowest was 500. Loads of them sold. And I'm like, that would probably take a good guy 15 minutes to change them.
Yes, it's crazy. It's funny you bring up too with like, I've gotten so many questions with the NFT, like after I did the NFT podcast, I've gotten questions about like, okay, so like starting with the ownership, which maybe you can answer this too. They basically asked me the question of, okay, so you put, let's say I create a song and or a digital art piece, and I put it on the blockchain, and somebody's like, well, how do I still know that you're the verified owner of that and you didn't take it from somebody else? And I had to answer it with, well, do you know the Mona Lisa was originally created by yada, like, how do you know? They're trying to make a negative stance immediate, and you're like, well, that's for any piece of art. Like, that's the courts to decide. You have to take, that's where the original creation has to be displayed by the original files. So, do you get what I like?
Yeah,
they're asking that question.
And I mean, like, yeah, because at the end of the day, like when it's promoted and everything, the information of the person that's actually stating it. So if it was me and you buy it off me, but I'm saying I'm the owner of this, and then you buy it, I think it comes back to me, to be honest with you, because I'm the
original creator.
Because you've bought it on good merit. I've been like, if I wasn't the original creator, if I'd robbed it from somebody without saying nothing, like, tis I because you can trace it back, I would say that I would be the liable one because I didn't, I wasn't ethical in my dealings.
But those are the questions we get with all this stuff, and it's like that intense, like trying to teach people all this Web3, like this NFTs, all this stuff, and a lot of, I'm 40, I'm going to be 41 next month, and a lot of people that are older than me in my family even are, so stuck in not like, I don't want to change it, and it's like, it doesn't matter whether we want to change or not. This Web3 is coming whether we like it or not. It just depends on how it all evolves. And the other thing with Web3, not to piggyback back off that, is we may need new types of cell phones to be able to like do all this Web3 stuff. Like, you're talking, there's all this change. That's why it's potential. It could take a decade or two before any of it actually is implemented at all, but it's awesome to see we are slowly moving progress. And maybe it was Edward Snowden showing that like the data collection was a dangerous thing. But this is all leading to something, a bigger perspective of owning our own data and allowing us to be the masters of our own data. So I think that's ultimately where Web3 is moving to, which I hope it does, because I think for you and I both, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't really like all these companies selling my data, and then I'm getting these, these marketing spam, all this stuff. And that's, I think, a lot too, to go with a lot of people with crypto are nervous about all the fraud and all this stuff. And I think they misidentify what the actual fraud is versus like what current fraud is, if that makes sense. Like the current fraud of like spamming and all that stuff, where I think crypto is different with how the fraud works. It's more of a black market, like where that stuff happens. And it's really not as big as people think, though. Like, it's Chainalysis did 2020, they did a thing about it, and it was only I think it was like 3.1% of crypto was actually used in the black market, and the predominant coin was Moreno, I think was the top coin that was used as fraud, because it's really the most non-trackable coin. But they said that most criminals don't use it because they still don't understand crypto, that they're still using US dollars as fraud, anyway. That's where it's like Web3, everybody's like got to start understanding that there's bigger pictures here, and it's going in a direction whether we like it or not, and it's trying to eliminate a lot of that stuff from happening. So
excellent. When you're looking at new coins, because I think there's something like 8,000 now at this stage, and
yeah,
I know we've heard of the rug pulls and everything, but like, what would you advise somebody that's kind of looking at Like what kind of systems of you that you kind of go, this isn't going to be a rug pull?
Sure. So I don't ever, and you know this too, like you stated before, like I don't give financial advice. The way I process getting a coin, which I'm more of a Bitcoin purist just because of the original, but I do own a couple little coins, small coins, not a ton of them. When I look for stuff, it's specifically, what does the white paper say? The white paper is basically the outline of what each coin is doing. The biggest thing is the use case. Like, what is the ultimate use case for this coin or token? Meaning, like, why are we using it? Why are we purchasing it? What's the end goal for it to be used for? Is it just me to, store in a vault? Is it just because it's named Shiba? Is it just because it's named some random coin? Because a lot of people just go based off of a name, and it's like, you can do that. That's your prerogative. But I would highly suggest against it, because most of the time it's so volatile, you're going to miss out on these leaps. So usually it's the white papers, the use case. What, like, if everybody's piling into it, it's probably speculative. So I would be very hesitant with it. If Elon Musk is sitting here saying it's going to go to the moon, I would be very cautious with that, because most of the time when investors are speculative like that, they're probably already bought into it and they're going to sell when it's really high. So you probably already missed the boat. Those are usually my three indicators of, like, if I'm going to purchase a coin, but the predominant one is the use case. So like if I see a value to it where it's like, oh, this looks like it's got a lot of potential. The other thing too is you can do the short term if you want, like that's totally fine. I learned how to swing trade back during the pandemic, and it taught me that I know very little about how to time markets, because it is unpredictable, and so I'm not telling people not to hold on to coins short term, but for me personally, it's like, find a use case that is going to last a long time, because that will predominantly grow over time. That's top investors usually do that. It's, you hold for a while. But use cases are generally the biggest one, the white paper, and also seeing what the team that's behind it is actually doing with it. Do they have other coins or tokens that they built that were successful? Do they, what's their end game? Where are they looking at for this coin to move to? There's a lot to do with that. So that's predominantly what, like, if people ask me, like, again, I don't give financial advice, but that's where I'm looking if I'm trying to see what I'm putting my money into cryptocurrency.
Okay. And with proof of work and proof of stake, you might talk about that, and also the so-called change with Ethereum, when there's supposed to be the proof of stake coming. I don't know when it's coming, but
yeah, I don't. So go ahead.
You might explain to people that if it's only proof, is there coins that have just proof of stake, or is it a case of both?
Yeah, majority of coins will just be one or the other. They won't. They really won't be both, because it's too tricky to do that. And you have, like, they'll do, like, Bitcoin has forks, or like they'll have, like a hard fork or a soft fork, where it's basically like they take it and there's still the original Bitcoin, but then somebody branches off the blockchain to be a different, like, there's Bitcoin Cash or whatever it is, which again, I don't know much about it, just because I stick with the original. But like Bitcoin Cash might be proof of work or whatever, and then they branch off another thing and it's proof of stake,
But like, who creates this? I mean, does somebody just decide, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then they own all this and they become billionaires overnight?
Well, yes. So like, there's teams of developers that'll get into this, that'll get involved in it, and they'll see some other type of use case for it, and that's where they start to do a fork for, like, well, we want to change. So like, there's rules with blockchain, and they're called protocols, and those protocols are what make the blockchain secure. So like, blockchain has its protocols, but if they want to change that protocol, either everybody that's a part of Bitcoin has to accept that. That's called consensus on the blockchain, where everybody has to agree to it. If it doesn't, they can still fork off and make a new protocol that'll make this new type of token or coin. This is where a lot of people are like, oh, this is all BS, because people are, which I'm not disagreeing, but that's why you have to look at the use cases of those new tokens and coins being built. A lot of people get annoyed with me with this, but I would say like 95 to 98% of cryptocurrency is BS. There is 2% of cryptocurrency that is legit a game changer. A lot of pure crypto heads get really annoyed with me saying that. But the truth of the matter is, it's like you have people that are just like, get rich quick and get out. And they do. And they fall, and there's a lot of people that fall for it, which is why I created the Crypto 101 show. Is like, don't fall for that. That's the stuff. Like, there is, sure, maybe a percentage of people get rich quick off of selling a coin. You and I aren't going to be those people. Like, you really got to stay to a computer 24/7 to be able to time that, or, you know. So when people fork those off, yeah, like, it's usually developers, teams of groups of people that want to build something. And most of the time it's on Ethereum's blockchain that they're doing that. Which, again, Ethereum is like the leader in DeFi apps when it comes to building these things, which is not a bad thing. It's good, but it can be bad because you get, you know, this is where we get accountability. Cryptocurrency makes people have to be accountable and actually pay attention to what they're buying. And I think that, to me, is a good thing. And that's why it's important to understand when something hard forks or soft forks, or read the white paper, read the use case of it, see what it actually entitles before you start buying it. I cannot tell you how many people are like, well, I bought Bitcoin, but they bought like some other offshoot of Bitcoin. It's like, that's not Bitcoin. Read the use case, read the white paper, just see exactly what you're buying before you actually do this, because there is a lot of developer teams that do that, and people pour their money in, and then the coin drops down, and it's like, so that's where it gets confusing for people to understand. But that's why, like, you know, with crypto, it's a big market. There's a big picture, and it's a lot of information to understand. So anyway, I kind of hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And just on like wallets and exchanges, then what's I mean, I know you don't like recommending something, but
no,
you know,
I always recommend for beginners. I know a lot of people that have been around for a while hate that I recommend it, but the reason I do is because its user interface is really easy. Is Coinbase. To get started in crypto, Coinbase has a really user-friendly interface for beginners. Once you get a grasp of it, by all means, move to Binance, move to any other exchange you want, Kraken, whatever it is. And not every exchange has every coin. So you have to remember that too. Like PancakeSwap has certain coins that you might want to purchase through it. Not a big deal. You have to, you know, obviously get an account through there, go through that whole exchange to get the coins you want. And then my rule of thumb, not your key, not your coin. What does that mean? That's predominant in the cryptocurrency realm. It basically means if you purchase a coin on Coinbase on an exchange, you're going to want to pull it off that exchange. The blockchain is really secure. Most Bitcoin's blockchain hasn't been hacked yet. And there's a reason for it. And that's a lot of information to give people. But pretty much the exchanges can get hacked. The exchanges aren't blockchains. So you're going to want to pull any coins that you do off of the exchange and put it onto what we call a cold wallet. Cold wallet, you remove off of your computer. It's like a USB stick. You put your cryptocurrency. Yeah, do you have exactly? Yeah, I have. Is that a ledger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a digital ledger too. I put it in a safe in my house, lock it up, store it. When I buy new crypto, I put it back into there, transfer it over from the exchange, and I bring it back off of it. Why do you do it? What's the reason you put it on cold storage?
Same things, but you know, because like I mean, Mount Gox, is it that was going back about in 2010? But like, because I've heard about that, I watched the documentary about it, and I was like, ooh, and it's basically what you said there. Like it's not on an exchange, it's not yours. Like, it's great. I mean, to have a small amount, yeah,
Yes.
playing around, of course, you don't want to be, because yeah, it is a bit of work. You're putting in the code, and just for those that don't know, like you create a code and you're doing, so you're kind of acknowledging everything that you do when you do it, but at the same time, when you get a certain amount, you don't want to be risking it. You put it away, and like the beauty is, if you're a nomad, I think it's ideal because you can travel around the place, and yeah, you don't have to deal with this. Oh yeah, you're only allowed 10,000.
Yes, yeah, and so that it's funny you bring that up, because those exchanges get hacked. Coinbase has been hacked before, and that's the other thing with cryptocurrency. This is not backed by the FDIC, like, so, and that, I don't know if that's where in Europe and stuff, but in America, the FDIC basically insures a certain amount of money in your bank account. Like, I think it's like $250,000 before. So if like somebody comes in and steals money out of your account or whatever, the FDIC will cover 250,000.
It's 100,000 there, and I always think, good luck getting it.
Yes.
Yeah, they just tell you that to make you feel good. I don't think you're ever
gonna. Yes, and that, so with cryptocurrency, with the exchanges, they do not insure. So like, if you leave stuff on the exchange and that exchange gets hacked, say goodbye to it. Most of the time, you do not get that currency back. There are a few hacks that have been, and they do get the currency back from the hacker or whatever it is. But that's where so you have the ledger, just like I do. You put it in, it's cold storage. Hot storage is basically anything that's connected to the internet. So you can have a hot storage wallet, something like Electrum or whatever. I used to have Electrum, and you put it on a wallet on your desktop. It's a little more secure than Coinbase, but if somebody hacks your computer, they could still get into that hot wallet. And especially if you leave the keys on your computer, which means like the digital codes, if you put them in a document and they find that document, they can steal your crypto still. So it's always best to move it off of there. But like you said, if you're doing small amounts, by all means, you could keep it on an exchange, like, to learn how to do it and stuff. But it's when you get more and more like advanced and you're getting bigger chunks of the crypto, I would highly recommend investing in $100 ledger for peace of mind, pulling it off and not have to worry about it. And the other thing with those with the cold wallets, a lot of stores allow you to use those now to buy goods and services with it. They have USB readers that will take crypto for you. So it's evolving into Web3. It's just slowly going into there. So that's
brilliant. And just fine. And to be honest, I'd love to get you back, because what I want to do is, I'm listening to your shows and get you back covering the different things, because I think you have a great way of explaining it. So the mining, have you touched on mining at all, or what's your thoughts on that?
So I have not touched on mining. I actually did an interview with another podcast. He's doing this, and he was in England, and he's got a whole company that builds mining computers and does mining stuff. I am not a logic thinker, and for mining, it's like, I know with algorithms, they're solving these complex algorithms to build these coins, because that's another thing people get really confused with, is like, what are the miners doing? Well, they're the ones that obviously mine out the coins by their supercomputers that are pulling out these giant algorithms to produce these coins for us, portions of these coins, and then they sell them to us, and that's why we pay a miner's fee when we do purchase cryptocurrency. We have to pay for a miner's fee that they get a cut of it or whatever. And it just depends on the coin exchange that they have the agreement with on what the actual fee is. But I have not touched much on mining. I know a few of my friends have started to slowly get into it, and they were making money, but their electric bills were outrageously expensive. So it was like, it's one of those things. But I haven't touched too much into mining, just because the complexity of building a computer like that, and also the shortage of computer chips, have led me to not actually look too much into it, just because I'm like, there's just no way.
I think the timing is important, because at one stage, when it was becoming very popular, it was too late. Then it just kind of dropped. People bought all the processors and everything, and they knew what they were doing. Because I know people are taking the parts out of the computers, reselling the rest of the computer. and they're making good money. Like I know one guy that I know, and he was getting a return in 4 months, and he said on a bad situation it was a year. But I know that can all change, and I think it's too late now. Again, I think it's like the costs have gone up so much that it doesn't justify doing it, and you just need to be watching the market and looking at the different types.
Yes. I would totally agree with you. That's exact, and it's one of those where it's like you got to know how to build a computer. You got to know how to do the ins and outs of it. And I'm tech savvy, but I'm not enough to like, and I should do a podcast on mining. I just because it would be a good one for people to understand. It's one of those where it's like like coding, like how people are like, I don't understand coding, but it's still a good grasp to understand the language behind it, how it all operates and works. But I totally agree with you. It seems like with the market, with the computer chips and all that stuff, it's like it's crazy expensive to get involved in it. And again, if people want to, they can. I just am like, I couldn't afford it, and I don't want my electric bill going crazy, especially out here right now. It's getting kind of costly.
I reckon what's happened around the world that a lot of people were making money, and then all of a sudden it actually went to negative. So yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Okay, listen, Joseph, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You might let people know how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody wants to listen to the show, it's the Crypto 101 show. You can find it on any major streaming platform: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Stitcher. All of them have it on there. If anybody ever personally wants to get in touch with me, it's thewild1media.com. It's THE, the number one, wild. So it's wild1, number one, media.com. And yeah, they're more than welcome to get in touch with me. I'm always open to suggestions too for show ideas, questions for people. I get questions all the time. I love getting them because that lets me know what the audience wants to hear about, and that helps me because some of the stuff I don't know, and then it helps me have to investigate, figure it out, and put it down as simplified as possible for people to understand. So anybody has questions, please feel free to shoot them to me. I would totally be happy to answer them.
Oh, brilliant. And I'll make sure I'll put the links both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
That's all for the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on cryptopodcast.org. We're on BitChute and YouTube. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, subscribe. Until next week, take care.